and welcome back to our conversation with Priya. This is your host, Priya Mishra, and we are going to discuss with a very special guest, James Spurway. He is actually a finance advisor and he teaches pitching and also angel investor and investor, and he was a serial entrepreneur. It is going to be a very interesting communication and high value add for the business community. I would like you to listen him and follow him on LinkedIn, and all the descriptions details are given. But it's he blown away my mind when we discuss how much experience he has and what he brings to the startup community. So here you go. Please help me to welcome Mr. James. Hello, James. Welcome to my show, Conversation with Priya. Thank you for joining in.
Yeah, lovely to see you. Nice to be here.
So today is our guest, James Spurway, and he talks about fintech, angel investment, venture investment. He have invested on a lot of his startups, and his journey is amazing to hear. So before I explain about your journey, I want to know, how would you put together your 30 plus years of experience in this area?
How did I start, or just a summary of what I've done?
How do you started your journey 30 years ago?
Okay, so I have to make an admission. I am one of those people who started becoming an entrepreneur for the wrong reason. Why do I say that? I was running away from something.
Right.
I basically hated I loved what I was doing. I loved my role as a general manager of a 5-star hotel, but I absolutely hated, and I mean hate, my employer. The company that employed me did not support me, seemed to think I was no good, and yet I had increased ROI, or increased revenue 30-40% year on year. So
Right.
I'd done everything they wanted, and basically got told, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to have to work very hard for the next 10 or 15 years to get the next position. So I was in Vietnam, and Vietnam in those days was basically an open book, like a blank canvas.
Yeah.
I just made up the decision. I left. I went from running a 5-star hotel with 500 employees and 25 middle managers to being one, right? A company of one. But it taught me a good lesson, and that is, at the start, I think I felt that I'd made a mistake because I was used to having all the support mechanisms and everything around me. I hadn't really thought about a plan, and I stumbled into realizing that I was really good at sort of listening to someone's need and then finding a solution for that problem, as opposed to saying what I did and then trying to find people to kind of match that. So I was like a consultant at the start. My first business was quasi market entry consultancy in Vietnam. And unlike someone who's gone, say, from university to an investment bank, and then maybe gone from investment bank to, say, venture or fund management, I had left school. I dropped out of school. I was a school dropout, no university background behind me.
Interesting.
Until late in life. I went back and did a bachelor's degree.
Oh, that's
way
good.
Later than most. But because of that, I think I didn't have that preconceived idea about what you must do. I had no kind of like structure in terms of my thinking. I just had a background as being a farmer's son, where you have to make do, you have to be innovative, creative. You have to get by with nothing. You have to work long hours. I had everything you need to be an entrepreneur, right? A startup. All that DNA was there.
Yeah.
So I just winged it. This is horrible, but I just winged it for the first 10 years. I just went into ideas that seemed okay, did some research, put some money in, got a team together, built something, sold something, did the next one. And I just kept on rolling from basically startup to startup. And these were all brick and mortar startups. So I did basically 6 brick and mortar startups in Vietnam within 7 years, like one a year I started.
Wow.
And I did that because no one else was doing it. I was there, opportunity was there. I just thought I could do it. Now, these days, that's not possible. You can't just start something and hope. You have to have some idea and also some expertise, and usually a network before you even think about it. But like I said, I started, then I had to keep on going. Otherwise, I was going to sink. And so I started investing only recently, the last 10 years, in other people's companies. For the first 20 years, it was always my company.
Sure.
Then I said, no, this is crazy. It's time to start investing in other people's companies, hence becoming an angel investor and a mentor, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we are today.
Very interesting, because I mean, some people say that, you have to jump to start swimming. Unless you jump in the water, you don't know. But it was a good risk-taking ability as well. That's the first sign of any entrepreneur. I have heard that if you want to be a real entrepreneur, you have to learn how to take a risk.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting. And also, there are a lot of people think, that going university, and I mean, it's quite proven a couple of times by the researchers as well, that if you go to the university, a PhD student lost their 70 years of creativity, and that's how the systemized system teaches you. But it's good that you are not a quitter. You detour in between and you go back to the education. You understand the importance, because there are a lot of people are struggling for that. That's a very amazing story for us. So tell me something, like I was going through your LinkedIn, and it says you have worked with the 500 plus startups and 2,500 companies and 6,000 entrepreneurs and 77 plus countries. It's an amazing number you have worked in. So
I don't think it's quite that much, but there's a lot. I mean, whatever I've got on LinkedIn, I don't think it's quite that much. What I think it means is that when I did my own companies, I guess it wasn't in one country, right? I worked in different countries. So
Sure.
the core competency or the core skill of an entrepreneur is transportable. You don't have to limit yourself to your own country, your country of birth. You don't even have to limit yourself to your language. I worked in Vietnam at the time.
Yeah.
Now, it was hard communicating. I didn't do very good Vietnamese, and most of them didn't do much English. But the point is, if you saw the opportunity and if you could communicate the opportunity to someone else, and that person doesn't, is not your nationality or not your culture, doesn't speak your language, you find common ground. If there's a big enough reason for both of you to achieve that. And so, yeah, the fact that I went from Australia, my own country, to Vietnam, to Hong Kong, then to Germany, then to Switzerland, then to the UK, then to America, then back to Germany, then back to Vietnam, then to Singapore, was partly family, but partly opportunity. So, you can't separate both. There is a element of you go sometimes to places because of the family or the family needs, but sometimes you go first for the opportunity, and then the family has to fit into that. It's juggling, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of as an entrepreneur, as an angel investors through a thing called syndication, so angel syndications, if I had the money, I could make an investment every day.
Right.
Every day. Because the opportunity of good quality startups is there. There's tens of thousands of companies starting, actually 5 million plus in America each year. So it's not difficult to conceive that you could invest at an amazing velocity if you had the money. Yeah. But of course, that means that you're not taking any interest anymore. And it also means that you're not adding anything anymore. It's just money. And that doesn't really sit well with me. I don't want to control the startup, but I do want to have an involvement with the founders. And I do want to think that I can bring domain experience, connections, knowledge, and money, and not just here's a check, bye-bye. Like, to me, that that takes away the most enjoyable part of investing. And that is the relationship side of working with the founders.
Yeah. And I always believe that, any investor should have the involvement, because it's not just about money. It's also about your experience and your knowledge. And look at your experience. Like, you have been to so many countries, throughout the years, and you have so good understanding about the cultural context. So by the look of the product, and when you see the product segmentation and you're trying to, create a forecasting about voice of consumer, you'll be very, very, you can see, foresee a little bit, because I mean, of course, if you have a data, you can see much clearer, but even if you don't have, you can see by the look of the product and by the look of the market they want to target, You'll be able to foresee that, this how successful it
Right.
would be, and you can contribute more than the money, actually,
Yes.
given your
Yeah.
experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed. And the
So
younger founders are wanting that. Younger founders are looking for a bit of leadership because I say young relatively, right? 20
yeah,
something year old founders. They've got maybe brilliant technical knowledge. And of course, they've had probably a very good education, most of them MBA, but it doesn't prepare you for life.
no,
I don't think education helps really. In fact, sometimes it narrows your ability to kind of look at the world in a broad way. And so they don't have enough life experience to really be a leader. They're just part
yeah,
of a team.
yeah,
And I think that's why they look sometimes to older founders, maybe not as old as me, but older investors and mentors to provide them that, as you said, that knowledge of, well, I've been here before. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'll give you a couple of options of what happens, and
yeah,
you should decide which
yeah.
of those paths to take.
That's very interesting. And not only the smaller, I mean, younger generation, I would say some of the geniuses I've been working throughout my career, been in corporate for a couple of years, and last 9 years I'm running my own business. And I've met with so many R&D based projects, and they are such a great genius, but they cannot interpret the market. Good
Right.
product doesn't mean it is a good market fit, you know.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to comprehend by all those people who are working on those great product and great ideas. Bringing that market fit is very much needed. A experience like yours, where you can actually guide them through that, how much and how you can actually bring this to market fit. The idea is
Yes.
great. All ideas are great. But
Yeah.
bringing that to the market and user experience and user acceptance is altogether a complete different forte to have. Would you agree?
And I agree. I think the easiest way to look at this is going back to the let's say the early 90s .com era. It's a surprise that any of those companies ever survived because there were so many people with so many ideas going in so many different directions and getting lots of money and just
Mm,
wasting it, that it kind of like, now looking back, it's amazing that some of those companies had the leadership team or the vision to kind of stick to one thing at the time and just execute. And those are the ones who survived that .com crash because they were focusing, they were executing, they were building slowly. They weren't kind of going, as you said, one idea today, one idea tomorrow, and I think that's happened once, but we forget that. We kind of, the past seems to be forgotten very, very quickly when people are trying to do something today. They don't look back at the past and go, what are the lessons we can learn from those mistakes? They kind of go,
mm,
as you said, they feel uninhibited and they get told by their professors at grad school, failure is fine. So just don't worry about it. Just go ahead and do something because if you fail, it's okay. There is a bit of a caveat to that though. And I think this is what people don't understand. If you fail because you ignored advice, didn't listen to investors, didn't seek proper validation, went ahead and built something, launched it, and then crashed, you won't get money again because that's a personal failure. If,
mm.
on the other hand, you created a product, started creating a product, got out to the market, iterated, validated, got feedback, developed that product, found really good market fit, and then the market either collapsed or changed, meaning economic circumstances outside the organization, or something happened that meant that you could not sell,
Hmm.
that's no longer a personal failure. That's a company failure. The company was good, the team was good, product was good, something happened, it didn't work, move on, here's some more money, start again. So
Right.
that's the thing about failure. Look, you can learn from it, but if it's because of your lack of ability to take advice or feedback, and that's the personal fault, as a founder,
Yeah.
you're going to have a very difficult time to get money again. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Having that perseverance is very much needed. How do
yeah.
you perceive, and how can you develop those resilience? So that brings to my next question. You invest in person or you invest in product?
No, I don't really care about the product. I'm investing in the person. So, okay, the first thing I'm thinking about is, and there's a great analogy by a guy called Eric. I think the author is Eric Ries. Anyway, there's two great books or three great books that I've read. One's called Good to Great. One's
Yeah.
called Built to Last. And one's basically called the story about the flywheel, what a flywheel is. The principle he has is the people who make successful long-term companies that have been, that are around for 10, 20, 30 years or longer,
Mm-hmm.
they did one thing in common. They got the right people on the bus and put in the right seats on the bus first. Then they decided, okay, now where are we going to drive this bus? So
Right.
driving the bus is the product. Getting the right people on is team selection or founder selection. And
Hmm.
if you've got the best in what they can do that work together as a team, I think you can invest in that and some vision, not even have to think about really that first product.
Right.
And I'll give you a good example, concrete example is Hewlett Packard, the two founders,
Yes.
Hewlett and Packard.
Yeah.
When they started, they said, let's form a company. Let's get Bill and Bob and Dave as well, because we love them. We get on together. We know each other. We get, we have the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
Did they say, and build a computer? No, they stopped there. Let's just get these people together and start the company. Now,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? They didn't have a clue. They did not have let's do a computer
Yeah.
idea when they started. That came many years later after much failure and doing crazy things for products. They kind of evolved into, okay, hardware, computer. So it just goes to show, right? You don't have to have the product idea before you start the company. You have to have
Yeah.
a good team.
Yeah. And your idea evolves. You cannot
Yeah.
stick to the day one ideas and you can expect to be actually market fit. Idea evolves and innovation is the key to succeed. And look at the Kodak, they innovated, but then they forget to innovate and they are out of business. So
Yeah.
innovation is key to stay in the market,
Yeah.
I believe, You have
So
invested a lot, in actually fintech, credit tech, climate related technologies and edge tech, etc. Which one was the hardest industry for you?
I think the hardest is looking at climate tech because it's scary. You think you might be able to help, but then you realize the problem is so big, you kind of wonder whether getting involved is worthwhile. When I say worthwhile, it's worthy, but is it going to work? Can I make any change? Can I actually have any impact? Because I am a small individual investor. So I hesitated. I kind of like spent a lot of time looking and not doing on climate
Yeah.
tech before I just said, to hell with it, I'll get in anyway and see what happens. And that's because the problems are so big. They do require a lot of capital. They do require a lot of IP. And so you have to choose companies that you can get involved in, that you can somehow have an effect on. And that usually means the solutions they're doing are relatively small in scope, but can be scaled later, as opposed to getting into a climate tech solution company who's doing like deep tech or hard tech that's going to take hundreds of millions or billions and take 5 to 10 years to get to market. That's what I mean. You like those and you get offered those, but you can't touch them because you're not yourself $1 billion, $10 billion fund. You don't have the scale to run through them. And I think that's why a lot of angels get the same as me. They kind of like look at it and go, I love it, but I don't think I can do anything with it because it's too big. Versus fintech, credit tech, age tech. A lot of those are just small software solutions. They're just like a small app or an ecosystem or a platform. You can build it, you can run it, you can operate it, low capital, large returns. Climate tech's the needy one, like the needy son or daughter, but takes a long time to get there.
So do you suggest them that they should come up with the larger vision and then they should make it more object oriented and bits and pieces they should go with?
I think they've got to work out what they're doing. How does what they're doing fit in? And if they can think about filling a gap or a bridge between perhaps two other solutions that are going to be maybe driven by government collaboration or PPP, public-private partnerships, or very large venture, and yet they can somehow help spin those up or make them more efficient or make them whatever, then that's where people I'm talking with and smaller founders should see themselves as providing a valuable and long-term solution, but not necessarily have to think about becoming $1 billion company, a unicorn. And I think that's the other, let's say, part about venture that I don't agree with. And I think you can provide an amazing contribution and a very valuable contribution to an overall solution and never become $1 billion company. A $50 to $100 million company, maybe, or a couple of $100 million company. But that could be so essential to releasing the opportunities and the scale of the other ones around you that you were important.
Yeah.
Yes, you didn't become a front sort of page, front of mind household name, but that causes a lot of startups to not be sure about should they start.
Right.
When they know in themselves they're probably never going to be $1 billion company, but should I start? Yes, you should. Yes, you should. Still.
Yeah. Social impact is high. Why not? And
Right.
that is my question to founders all the time, that do you want to start a business to make money, or you want to start a business to make a change?
Right.
That's the question every founder should ask themselves, So there is two different reasons and two different purpose, and there is two different journey altogether, I believe.
Although in climate, I'm noticing that people who are making a change will eventually make money, even if that's a second order effect. But you can't go into climate tech with the only intention to make money, because your heart has to lead you in, not your head.
Right. And that's what you have to question yourself at the beginning. You want to make a difference, or you want to make money at the beginning? I mean, eventually that's the outcome of every business,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
You need to know where you actually your personal values are falling,
Yes.
and that's where you should choose long-term goal
Totally.
and short-term goal. So
Totally
very
agree.
interesting discussion with you. And I would like to ask, what was your best success story so far, and which actually keep driving you at this moment?
I think very early, I didn't know much about this whole area of climate and renewables. But we're talking about mid-90s, so quite a long time ago now.
Right.
And so I made some pretty, you'd say, risky, courageous investments that completely were disasters, meaning went nowhere. And so I thought, this is going to be nothing, right? I couldn't see a future in that for me.
Right.
Until I went back to Vietnam again in 2007, so many years later. In the meantime, I'd been left behind, right? I used to be a big name in the industry, and all of a sudden I'd been away for a while doing other things. I come back, there's now big funds all over the place. I'm nothing. I'm just like a nobody.
Whoa. Okay.
But I realized that there's sort of opportunities right in front of us that kind of weren't being seen. You know how sometimes the best opportunities are right at your feet or right around you, but kind of people looking too far or too high. And one of them sort of struck me like a lightning bolt. That is, in Vietnam, they're a very big agricultural nation, like India, produce a lot of agriculture. But Vietnam is was always fighting with Thailand to become the biggest exporter of rice. They're still the same. The rice husk, the plant, once it's harvested, usually gets gathered up, put on the ground, and burnt.
Right.
So two things happen. You've got a waste stream that you don't get any money for, and you pollute the atmosphere, right? You're letting off all this smoke into the atmosphere, and during the harvesting season, the air is thick with smoke, pollution, blah, 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 big mess. And I thought to myself one day, surely that rice husk, that material, can be used for something. And then I met a man in Vietnam, and he said, we'd known each other quite a while. He was someone who always was into regenerative agriculture, always trying to do natural agriculture, natural pesticides, natural fertilizers, all that sort of stuff. He said, we could make like a liquid out of
Sure.
the rice husks,
Yeah.
and maybe that liquid we can then somehow work a way to make it into like a biodiesel, like a fuel.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so from nothing, we ended up creating a biodiesel process and turning something which was at the time a complete waste that farmers weren't getting anything for into something that then benefited them. We were buying the rice husk and bringing it to the factory, paying them money, real money per weight. And then the end product was also helping the environment because we're talking about biodiesel was better than complete diesel coming from the petrochemical process. And
Yeah.
although that never scaled, that one factory never became 10 or became like a massive business that was bought by a multinational, it triggered a lot of other investments and a lot of other projects in that area. Once they saw someone take something which they thought was waste and do something with it, people all of a sudden could see things and opportunities which were right in front of their eyes, which otherwise they would have ignored. So sometimes, like I said, this is one of those cases where I didn't have to become big to
Yeah.
instigate change. You
Yeah.
sometimes just have to be the one to do it the first time, and then people go, "Oh, I've also got an idea. Oh, I could do that." So it unleashed a whole wave of innovation and investment, and that's not my biggest investment, not my biggest profit, but probably the one time that I was involved in something as a team that went from 0 to 1, finally did something new, hadn't been done before, and that's I think the time you feel the best when you've been involved in something that's genuinely innovative, and you're the first to do it.
Yeah, interesting. Because fulfillment is ultimately everything. Whatever you do, you should feel fulfilled with that. I've done something right. Yeah, that is satisfaction.
That should be, sadly, right? We both know that the motivational aspect of I mean, some cultures more than others, but more people are motivated by status, money, things, object status, and recognition based on bank accounts. For me, it's always been about, as you just said, fulfillment. Hey, I've done something really good. I don't care if no one knows about it, but when you know what happened, when you were there, and when you realize it was me, right? Not some PhD, as I said, some smart, like intelligent. It was just good old fashioned, I don't know, inspiration at that sort of
And it
spark.
makes you happy today as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's 20 years on, it makes me happy. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Because I always believe if I'm going to my bed and I'm smiling on something, it means my day went well.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's it.
that's something you need to think about, what makes you happy and what makes the change and impact. That's,
Yeah,
when money come and goes, but respect you
yeah,
gain by those changes you've
yeah,
done. And at
yeah.
the end of the day, you are not gonna regret when you retired
No,
and sitting on your couch and thinking about your whole life backwards.
yeah,
That's something
that's
makes a
right.
difference.
That's
So
right.
it was pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. So to find you, I know you offer services like financial advisory and coaching, planning, and strategic aspects.
Yeah.
So to reach you out, how people can reach you out, what will be the best way?
Look, I believe in. They should check me out first. I mean, go to my LinkedIn profile, have a look, see what I'm doing, or just go to my personal website, jamesspurway.com. You see what I do, you'll see what I've done and what I'm doing for. And I think I'm always a believer in you've got to have a talk with someone. You really got to get to know someone, no matter what they're supposed to have done or can do. If that person and me don't meet in a mind sense, I don't want to work with someone who doesn't get it, and they don't want to work with me just because I've done something,
True.
unless they feel, hey, I get James. I understand what he's doing and where he's coming from. So go to my website or just give me an email, james@jamesspurway.com. It's very easy.
Very true. So all the details will be given down below. One last tip you want to give to those younger generation who wants to start today?
I really, really, really think that there's not many ideas left that are original. There's not many things left to invent or to create that haven't been created. And I don't mean to put people off becoming a startup founder, but if what you think is a good idea is really just a little bit better version of something that's been done 10, 15, 20 times, don't do it. I mean, sorry, stay where you are and think about other ideas until you can come up with something that seems to have a spark of originality, something where you can be satisfied that if it gets done, it won't just make life kind of easier and nicer, but it'll open up life for people who haven't got it, who are missing out on life. You can't always do it that way. That's being probably a little bit too altruistic and a bit kind of like that's the perfection of being a startup founder. Not everyone wants to do that. But please, please, please think about this, because it's their life too. Your money and your time you're giving up. And if you can't, why not just join another startup, not become the founder, but become a co-founder or one of the team in something that's already going, that's kind of needs your special superpower. You don't have to be the main person, right? The number one to succeed in changing a lot of people's lives. So look around. You can start a company, yes. But if you want to get the most bang for your buck, if you really want to have that overall effect, sometimes it might mean joining another team and just becoming very good at what you do with them and then starting a company, not just going out and starting a company like I did. Okay, it worked out for me, but it oftentimes doesn't work out when you just go, I want to start a company and I'm going to start it. It's like, okay. And I wrote a post today, and the post said, for me, I don't want passionate. I want obsessed. I don't want passionate founders. I'm passionate about this. I don't care. Because today you're passionate about this, tomorrow you're passionate about something else. I want obsessed in a good way, not crazy obsessed, but obsessed in the sense of
hungry enough.
Yeah, like a dog with a bone. And so if you're not obsessed about the thing that you're about to do, if you don't think you are put on this earth by God to do that one thing, don't do it. Keep on looking.
And until you find it, keep looking for it, and don't get advice to your friends and family and all, and drop your idea saying, this is not best because your mom or dad or your friend or your brother or somebody told who have no experience in that field. Find a real coach or real mentor for you to share your ideas, and that's where you can make a difference. Sometimes I have seen a lot of ideas drop because someone close friends, and I don't mean that you don't love your people, but this is something very, very different.
You don't ask a bachelor for marriage advice, right? Because they don't know, right? A single person can't give you marriage advice. Don't ask your family if they're not entrepreneurs, if they're corporate background, like job. Don't ask them for startup advice. It's very simple.
Yeah, true. So thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and it is very, very, very looking forward for other people to reach you out. I know you have been helping a lot of people. So thank you so much for today.
Thanks for having me, Priya. Good luck.
So that's it for today. And thank you so much for joining in and listening throughout the video. I'm sure it will be a very high value and very important discussion. If you have any question, don't forget to ask on below comment. And I'm sure we will be able to help you to get the answer. And on top of that, I would like to inform you that we are doing an event in May 17th to 19th. And all my listeners are invited to buy the ticket and join us in May 17th to 19th. There are 500 plus attendees, 50 plus exhibitors, 15 plus speakers. You cannot miss out. The experts like him is going to come and talk about and discuss what are the challenges and what's happening in different industries right now in 2023 and going forward. So don't forget to buy your ticket. Join us at our event at Sydney Masonic Center in Australia. Thank you so much for your cooperation.